So Charlie Kirk has been killed after being shot at a university campus in Utah. You already know, as it's all over the news, and I made a video about it last night. But as soon as it happened, I already predicted the discourse, and it's happening just as I expected. Now, Charlie Kirk had some truly disgusting views. He wasn't just a conservative. He had views that I think go beyond the realms of debate in a so-called civilized society. But it doesn't mean I support him being shot and killed. And I also feel very, very sorry for his wife and kid. Now, we do not know the shooter. They haven't been found, yet minutes after the news that he was shot, the right wing jumped on it and weaponized it for their own gain. When I tell you the right wing are truly repulsive, I mean it. Now, I'm not talking about anyone who votes for the right or your average person who is right wing. The people I'm talking about are the political right. These are politicians, pundits, influencers. They've come out and already blames the left. As I said, we know nothing about the shooter, but these people are almost gleeful about weaponizing this. They don't care about violence. They just want to see their political opponents destroyed. So I'm going to go through a series of posts from right-wingers weaponizing this, and then I'm going to debunk that the left wing are uniquely violent. Reform Chairman Zai Yusuf said, "First Trump, now Charlie Kirk are shot. The hysterical left calling their political opponents fascists and Nazis, aided and abetted by the mainstream media, is driving this pathological violence. It must stop." So that's a wild thing to say, by the way. Now, right-wing commentator Adam Brooks said, "The left are the fascists." Now, I love this one because Adam Brooks has been one of the most prominent figures attacking the left for their incendiary language, because some of us are willing to call people fascists and Nazis for being fascists and Nazis. Now, don't get me wrong, right? I think there are people out there who throw that term around all the time. But for me, I'm very selective with who I call fascists and Nazis. But if you support fascist ideologies and policies and you use rhetoric which is so similar to what the Nazis said, then yes, you should be calling people out for what they are. Now, Brooks has continually said that the left wing are violent for using these labels, yet here he is calling the left fascists. Now, Brooks needs to do some basic history because fascism is literally a right-wing ideology. It's not an opinion. Right, it's a literal fact. Richest man in the world, Elon Musk, told his entire platform that the left is the party of murder. This is the richest man in the world, the man who basically got Trump elected, who owns Twitter. Incredibly influential. How is that not dangerous? Another right-wing commentator, Matt Goodwin, said, "One of the biggest myths in our society is that it is the left who are the open-minded, tolerant ones." Now, this from Laura Loomer is a doozy. "Charlie Kirk's death will not be in vain. I will be spending my nights making everyone I find online who celebrates his death famous. So prepare to have your whole future professional aspirations ruined if you are sick enough to celebrate his death. I'm going to make you wish you never opened your mouth. These people need to be condemned in society, and there must never be a place for these people to gather without facing the shame of their behavior." Yet this is what she said about George Floyd just this year. "Congratulations to George Floyd on being 5 years sober today. What a hypocrite." Now, this is a video of Congresswoman Nancy Mace blaming the Democrats, yet getting called out to her face.
I'm going to say this. Democrats own what happened today. I am devastated. My kids have called panicking. All the kids of every conservative in the country called panicking. Just because you speak your mind on an issue doesn't mean you get shot.
Then, by that logic, do Republicans own the shooting of the two Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota? Isn't this on both sides?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm asking.
We don't know what condition Charlie Kirk is in right now. Some raging leftist lunatic put a bullet through his neck, and you want to talk about Republicans right now? No.
No, I'm asking
not at all.
You said the Democrats have donated
Democrats own this.
But isn't there a problem with political violence across the spectrum?
Yeah, we're talking about Charlie Kirk right now. That's the subject of this that we're talking about right now. Democrats own this 100%.
I don't even need to comment on that video. What you'll notice is that countless left-wing and liberal politicians have condemned this, yet when it comes to attacks on Democratic politicians, it's very different. In 2022, Paul Pelosi, the husband of Nancy Pelosi, was attacked with a hammer in his home. He was left with a fractured skull. His wife Nancy is a Democratic politician. Yet many Republicans joked about the attack, including the president's son. "Got my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume ready," and you can see a picture with underpants and a hammer. Another Republican politician, Claudia Tenney, made a joke about the attack. Claudia Tenney, a Republican who represents a district in central New York, tweeted a picture of a group of men holding hammers for Halloween with the caption, "lol." Not only that, but Charlie Kirk himself said the attacker, David DePape, should be bailed out. Charlie Kirk, a right-wing pundit, called for an amazing patriot to bail out 42-year-old David DePape, who was accused of perpetuating the attack on Pelosi. It seems, alarmingly, that there may be an appetite on the right to turn DePape into the next Kyle Rittenhouse and make him a hero. Now, this is just a tiny example of right-wing violence, which is then joked about by right-wing influencers. Now, could you imagine a Democratic politician making jokes about Charlie Kirk? Whilst I reiterate that I do not condone the killing of Kirk, in the interest of truth and objectivity, we can't let the right wing make out like he's a martyr. He is dead, yes, but he was not a good person. This is the kind of person he is. Charlie Kirk said that black people were better off in slavery and subjugation before the 1940s. It was bad and it was evil, but they committed less crimes. And here's a video of it.
It shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes.
Maybe they were afraid. I mean, 4,000 black men, women, and children were killed in violent lynch mobs.
That's your explanation, but
racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years.
Black America is worse than it has been
that affected
in the last 80 years.
The generational psyche of an entire group of people?
Here he is claiming that some people being killed from guns is okay.
So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, yes, by having more armed guards in front of schools. Yes. Yes. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. Wow. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe.
Well, now he is a victim of the gun violence and a victim of his own view. He would rather let people die than have gun control. There's really not much to say about this. Now, this is him here with Kyle Rittenhouse. Not only has Charlie Kirk came out and supported him, but the entirety of the right wing have. Kyle is a murderer who murdered 2 protesters. He crossed state lines in order to do so and got away with it. The right wing have been desperately trying to push a narrative that the left are violent. Yet it's the left and liberals who want systemic change on guns, meaning it would save lives. If the left had its way on gun control, it's plausible. It's highly likely that Charlie Kirk would still be here. Now, why isn't there gun control despite the countless killings from guns? Because of the NRA. The National Rifle Association lobbies the government on behalf of gun manufacturers. Any kind of regulation hurts the profits of these companies. Now, sensible policies such as background checks and to check if people are mentally stable to own a gun are not implemented because that would lead to less sales. In fact, when a shooting happens, more people buy guns out of fear. Gun manufacturers literally have an incentive to make shootings continue to happen. It's great for business. The Republican Party are big supporters of the NRA. Right-wing pundits, including Charlie Kirk, are against any kind of regulation. They tell people it's a right, and the cycle just continues. So if you want to see who is violent, look at those who care more about protecting the profits of the gun manufacturers than human life. The left and liberals have called for gun control for decades. The people that killed Charlie Kirk was, of course, the shooter, but you cannot deny that Kirk's death and every other gun-related death isn't also the fault of those who don't want to see gun regulation. His death is a great irony. Now, this is a good tweet, I thought, from Femi. The same people who spent the last 2 years telling us to treat the murder of 80,000 people in Gaza as an acceptable and justified loss are about to get real precious about the sanctity of one life. And I think he's spot on, right? A lot of this is performative outrage. I don't know how people can care so much about one life, but have zero sympathy for the innocent people being slaughtered in Israel's genocide. Oh, and Kirk was a Zionist, by the way. So despite the narrative that the left are violent, these are examples of political violence from the right. The Minnesota shooter from a couple of weeks ago was a Nazi. Joe Cox was killed by a Britain First supporter, and David Amos was killed by an Islamist extremist. Now, the right try and say that the left are Islamists, but all religions are ultra-conservative doctrine, so it's right-wing violence. Owen Jones and Aaron Bastani were assaulted. In June this year, Vance Bolter killed 2 Democrat lawmakers, Melissa and Mark Hortman. Republican Utah Senator Mike Lee made jokes about it. When Minnesota Democratic leader Melissa Hortman and her husband were murdered by right-wing extremist Vance Luther Bolter, Republican Utah Senator Mike Lee made jokes about it. None of this is a laughing matter. Joking about senseless violence was wrong then, and it's wrong now. You can't pick and choose. That's hypocrisy at its finest. Prayers for Charlie Kirk's family and for this nation. Between 2013 and 2022, right-wingers committed the vast majority of political murders. Right-wing extremism counts for 75% of these kinds of murders. Now, this chart shows political violence over the last 25 years overwhelmingly is from the right wing. Now, notice you see that Democrats have been targeted more often, but even when it's Republicans, they are targeted by right-wingers most of the time. Look, I'm just going to say it. The right wing have a near monopoly on violence. In the US, the modern conservative movement is a death cult. Now, you might say, well, you're being biased because you're left wing, and you've just made a video about calling out those who are weaponizing this issue. You're a hypocrite. But I've got the receipts. We've just gone through them. The ideology that underpins political movements is integral. What are the principles and values of the left? Equality, whether that's racial equality, economic equality, gender equality. The right, the modern conservative movement, is nationalism, more specifically, ethno-nationalism. Fascism, a right-wing ideology. Many share these views in Trump's administration. This is how I can say the two sides are different. Now, does it mean the left are incapable of violence? No. But do I believe both sides are just as bad? No way. But notice when a member of the right wing is attacked, there are calls for the left to moderate their language. Yet whenever people on the right use language that could be seen to encourage violence, it's suddenly all about free speech. You're a snowflake if you get offended. But is the solution just to blame the right wing? No, because that's their tactic. They are only interested in playing the game. It's the fault of the left. They just want to individualize this. The response is to change the system, starting with basic gun control, then more radical approaches to improve people's lives, reducing tension in society by addressing people's material conditions. We need to save democracy. So whilst the left will continue to push ideas to make society better, the right wing will continue to perpetuate this system they created and then blame everyone but themselves. Remember that we have live shows 3 times per week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 p.m. discussing the latest political stories. We are trying to go full-time and grow this channel. You can support us by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly via Patreon, or there is another link to a one-off donation. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. Remember to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.